What's up, my friends? Welcome to this episode of the Whole Health with Rob Carney podcast. So, this is a platform to connect with and share the stories of health professionals, personal development leaders, and health entrepreneurs who are making an impact in the world. So, who better today to have with us than Miss Leah Drew? So, Leah is a Los Angeles based massage therapist and movement specialist with a bachelor's degree in health sciences. She is one of 20 holistic ANF therapists worldwide and also educates other practitioners on how to utilize ANF therapy in their practice. She specializes in outside the box rehabilitation and pain management techniques to improve mobility, strengthen the physical body, optimize the subconscious mind, and balance the energetic being. So, Leah helps clients heal from chronic pain and chronic disease after many have found they can't find help anywhere else. So Leah is also the creator of the Mind Body Initiative, which is a 16-week online coaching program where she helps teach other people the tools to reduce their chronic pain and chronic symptoms, strengthen their bodies, and optimize their health for the rest of their life. Leah, welcome to the show.
Rob, thank you so much for having me. We've had such great conversation up through now, so I'm excited to continue that here with you on your platform.
Me too. And I'm excited to just go a little bit deeper than, as you said, the last conversation we had, which have been great. So I'd love to just start where it all began for you. Love to hear your story. What got you involved in the world of holistic health, the world of fitness, and anything else along that path?
Yeah, absolutely. My life never ceases to be interesting and full of surprises. And that's definitely one of the big reasons why I've kind of ended up here where I am physically and, through all of the things that have gone on. I moved to Los Angeles 10 months ago, literally the day before quarantine hit. And it's been a really interesting journey this year because it's really made me take a step back and look at all of the things that I've been through to actually get where I am today. And where did it all start? So definitely leading way back to childhood, which I think a lot of us can resonate with. Growing up, I had a pretty emotionally tumultuous childhood. And, my parents, they went through a pretty significant divorce, one that, is something I will always remember. And they're amazing humans and I love them so dearly. And they have been such a important part of my life. They've been so supportive. But at the time, they really found it difficult to emotionally support their children while they were trying to emotionally support themselves through a divorce. And I can't blame them for that. One, I've never been married, and two, I've never been divorced. So I can't even imagine what that must have been like. And, I give them credit because they did a great job. I always had food on the table in the refrigerator. There was always a roof over my head. There was always a jacket on my back. So forever grateful for that. But, I noticed as I started to get older that it really played a big impact on me. I was bullied going through school. I bullied other people going through school because it was those emotions and those feelings inside me that it was what I was kind of uh, mimicked, right? It's what I was taught to do. It's what I saw and it's what I reflected back. And I got into some trouble here and there going through high school. I think we all kind of had our moments. And at the end of high school, I really had a rude awakening because I will never forget. It was my senior year, and it was Halloween weekend, and I went up to UMass Amherst to visit my partner at the time. I know, repping home. um, and while I was there, I ended up I started internally hemorrhaging, and which means, for those that don't know what that means, it means I was bleeding internally. And come to find out, after the whole ordeal, ending up in the hospital and having the CAT scans and all the testing done, the following week I went to a specialist that I was referred to. They got the bleeding under control, took away the pain, which was great. Western medicine is really amazing when it comes to acute pain management and acute care. And I walked into this specialist office the following week, and I'm laying on the table, and this doctor walks right in and he goes, "Yep, so you have a pancreatic tumor." And I'll never forget the look on my mother's face when he said this. My mom was a nurse, so she knew what that meant. And chances of pancreatic tumors being benign are very, very slim. It's not very often that somebody develops a pancreatic tumor that is benign. And so very grateful that mine was, but it was the size of an orange. So it was pretty large. And it was really hard for me to understand and wrap my hands around what exactly was happening and the seriousness of it all. And I really truly didn't understand until years down the road when chronic symptoms started to arise. And again, Western medicine has been so great to me in the sense that they've saved me. They saved my life. God forbid that wasn't found. God forbid that kept bleeding in my body. That would not have been good. And they were able to remove it, but what they didn't warn me about were all of the things and all of the ways, the new ways, I should say, that I was going to need to take care of my body after something so significant made an impact on my life. And that's when, down the line, people don't realize that like chronic symptoms, they don't happen overnight. They develop 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years later, even sometimes. And people sit there and they're like, oh crap, like I'm in a lot of discomfort. What's going on here? And I think people have such an easy time wrapping their head around, oh, I rolled my ankle the other day walking down the street and now I'm in pain. That makes total sense. But when they can't actually tangibly grab and point to the one thing that happened that maybe week or the week prior that's leading up to them having all of this discomfort and pain and these chronic symptoms, again, I think it's just really hard for people to wrap their heads around. And so it started going through college when I developed really, really severe anxiety and depression. And I became that athlete in college that would wake up at the crack of dawn, get on the treadmill, and run miles and miles and miles before my 8 a.m. class. And what I didn't realize is that I was naturally on my own trying to regulate the hormone dysregulation that was happening in my body. And I thought I was doing it, in ways that were healthy, but unfortunately, it was actually doing a lot more damage to my body because it was just revving those cortisol levels up higher and higher and higher. And then you add in all the things that you do as a freshman in college,
I don't know what you're talking about with that. I don't know.
Lots of drinking, lots of other things that are no longer part of my life today. Some toxic friends, some toxic substances. I think a lot of us go down that road and we realize, oh, wow, okay, this is not making my body feel great. But anyways, so I tried to find all these ways to manage my anxiety and depression. And it got really, really bad to the point where for the first time I said, okay, I need a therapist. So I sought out a therapist. At the time, she supported me with medication. And I now look back and I wish that I had been able to find a therapist that maybe would have been able to give me some other tools rather than immediately handing me a pill and say, here, this is for you. This is going to help you. Because what had happened was over the next couple of years, not even years, over the next year, I'll say, I started developing other symptoms. I started developing hyperhidrosis, which is profuse sweating. And I am talking to the point where I would be sitting in class and I would have sweat dripping down my arms onto my exams. Like, one, gross. I did my run this morning. Like, what's happening? And two, it's like, well, I really hope that like the teacher doesn't think that like I'm weird, or everybody in class doesn't see my sweating.
Now you don't need a sauna. You're saving your trip to a sauna.
Detox pathways are working for me. And so not only did I start to recognize the mind-body connection here with time, but I started realizing that when you start giving the body pills and substances that are going to only help cover up symptoms, they're going to create more symptoms. And that's exactly what happened to me. They handed me a pill. It created other issues in my life. I got really depressed. I started profusely sweating. And then I end up in transferring schools and end up in a new college with some new doctors. And then what started to happen was I started getting Botox injected into my armpits, which, for those of you that aren't aware, Botox is extremely toxic. And they were injecting it right into my lymphatic system, right in under my arms. And on top of that, they gave me medications to support the profuse sweating. And they actually gave me glycopyrrolate, and which is going to help with down regulating the nervous system. And then they gave me more medication to help cover up these symptoms of depression. And so now I'm on these 4 or 5 different substances to just try to regulate my body, when in reality, all I was looking for, which I didn't know at the time, was the tools that I needed to regulate myself. And I started in college, the last 2 years of college, getting into some weight training, more weightlifting type stuff. And at the time, that's when Instagram started becoming like a really big hit. And you were seeing all these really beautiful ladies on social media with these like really cut up abs and bodies. And I was like, wow, like I want that. I want to look like them. And I think we all go through that, right? Like, especially too, I have moments too where I look at someone on social media and I'm like, damn, like, she's fine. Like, I want to look like that again too. But then I realized, oh no, but that doesn't actually feel good when you're not doing it the right way. And so I started weight training, and I started weight training in a very bodybuilder type way. And this can work for a lot of people until it doesn't, right? Until you start recognizing that, wow, mobility is really important. And you start recognizing, wow, core strength and optimal breathing is really important. And for me, my body had a little bit more of a challenge integrating with this, because I had a massive scar down my belly from when they removed that tumor as a senior in high school. And what a lot of people don't realize are the impacts of scars. And let me tell you, I learned really fast what that scar tissue was doing to my body. And scars actually inhibit a lot of muscles. They prevent muscles from being able to fire. And if you think about it, the best way I can explain this is when you are walking through the room and you smash your toe on something, right? You stub your toe. You start to avoid using that area of your toe. You might limp. And that's what your body does. When you have any form of injury, that can include burns, scars from surgery, bumps and bruises, right? Anything that happens to the body recognizes as traumatic, it recognizes as trauma. And it is so smart that it's going to compensate for that. And so what my body started to do, because of this massive 6-inch scar down the middle of my linea alba, which is from sternum to belly button, it started way underusing my core muscles in the front. You have core muscles that wrap around the whole body, but it's way started underutilizing my core muscles in the front, and really started overutilizing things like my erectors, and things that were actually pulling me into more extension, into a greater lordotic curve. And with time, I started having really severe pain, not just in my back, because now I'm compressing all of the discs in my lumbar spine, but also internally. And I get through the end of my senior year, and I decided I wanted to do a bodybuilding show. And I was really in that zone. I was really in that vibe of like, I'm going to lift hard. I'm going to get a good pump in. Like, I'm going to flex in the mirror. Like, those biceps look good today, girl. Like, check out those delts, you know? But I started training, and I started training for the show. And I had a couple of coaches actually. And that's another story of itself, but that was also kind of a traumatic experience, moving through so many different coaches that really didn't know how to manage a female's body who already had massive amounts of hormone dysregulation. Very common actually in the bodybuilding community. You have to be very careful about who you work with, because the female body is not like the male body. And I ended up with a male coach who pushed me a little past my limit and got to the point where I was fainting, walking from the bed to the bathroom. This was right before my show. And I got really, really sick. And I did the show. I gained some weight before I got on stage. And then I got on stage and I expected that experience was going to give me this sensation of, a powerful mind body connection. I did this, like, you worked hard. I accomplished this goal that I'd been reaching for with dedication and health and all of these things. But I stood on stage and I felt the complete opposite. And I realized that experience had completely separated my mind from my body. I wasn't lifting mindfully. I wasn't eating mindfully. I was putting all of these toxins and chemicals in and on my food so that they would taste good. Walden Farms, Splenda, all of these things that you check out those ingredients, man, and there's no nutrient dense ingredients in there whatsoever. And so that was really like the stop sign for me. We talk about these massive roadblocks where people are like, holy shit, like I need to change my life. And that was it for me. Following that, I really, really battled with one of the most severe bouts of depression I've ever experienced in my life. I'll never forget, I drove up to Canada. I was seeing somebody at the time that lived in Canada, and I met them in Toronto. And they were at class all week long in Anatomy in Motion, pretty cool class. If you haven't checked it out, I'd highly recommend. But he was at class, and that week I had some really, really serious thoughts about committing suicide. And it was scary. And I was alone. I was sitting alone in this apartment, and I knew the things that made me feel better, right? It was moving. I knew movement made me feel better. But immediately after that show, I'm sitting there on the floor, sobbing, bawling my eyes out, unable to stop plowing through chocolate and these junk foods that now my body's craving because my hormones are so off and my energy is not there. So my body's just craving any form of energy that it can possibly get. And I struggled because all I wanted to do was move. And I had so much anger and resentment around moving. And so it actually took me 3 months to step foot in a gym. Thankfully, that was the only time in my life that, in my adult life, that I have ever had those types of scary thoughts. And, if for anybody listening to this that is going through anything similar, I urge you to reach out, to someone, a therapist. They're there to support you. They're there to help guide you through that, and it's not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength when you can sit back and realize, wow, I need help. And I did. So I started seeing a therapist that was helping me move through some childhood trauma, helping me move through some trauma of the bodybuilding experience that I had had. And I really started realizing that I needed to drastically change my life. And it wasn't shortly after that I started moving again. I had to totally reframe my mindset around movement and what movement was. And I actually don't even like to use the word workout anymore because, for me at least, workout used to mean, going in that gym, getting that pump, like seeing the blood flow through those muscles. And yes, that's great. But working out is not high intensity workouts every single day. It's not high load, high reps every single day. Like sometimes, like I like to see now that movement is my workout, whatever I'm doing to move my body. And we were talking about this a little bit the other day, but for me, anything that I can possibly do that day is a workout for me. And I had to reframe that, which was really, really hard to do after all of the time and years that I had spent running like a a mountain lion and like lifting like a bodybuilder. And so it was a hard reframe, but anything can be reframed. Any story that you tell yourself can be changed. And that was that point in my life where I hit this wall and I'm like, I need to restory a lot of things. And I started changing the way I was living everything. I didn't yet dive into meditation. That was a couple years later, which was also a massive game changer. But the first thing I started with was food. I realized that all those things that I was eating and putting in my body, the meat that wasn't organic, the the Walden Farms, the Splenda, the added sugars, I cut a lot of it out of my diet. And I was still using other things, like I was using some supplements, I was using some pre-workouts still at that time, which I later realized were still contributing to my adrenal dysfunction. But starting to change the way that I ate changed everything. And so I went through that for about a year and a half or so, started working as a personal trainer at a gym and really started falling in love with movement again. And that was amazing. I was able to walk in the gym, have my energy, talk to everybody, and it helped me through a lot. And then around that time was when I found mindfulness. And that was when I started to realize that all of the emotions that I had had throughout my entire life, the emotions and the feelings surrounding my parents' divorce, the emotions and feelings surrounding the bullying that I experienced in school, the emotions and feelings surrounding the bodybuilding show, and the awful, awful, awful experiences that I had had through college, which now I realize have significantly served me. But at the time, wow, wasn't much that could have felt worse between, friends backstabbing you and not supporting you in the ways that they, that you thought they should be, and all this bodybuilding experience that I was thought that I was doing well, and I really wasn't moving healthy at all. At this point in my life, I started realizing that all these feelings and emotions were playing a significant role in my life. And I started realizing this through another partner that I had at the time. And I'll never forget this day. I tell him every so often when we connect, you have no idea what you've done for me, because he opened my eyes. He opened my eyes to the deep subconscious beliefs that I had about myself. And ultimately it was the belief that I couldn't, that I can't, that I couldn't do it. And I think that a lot of us go through that. You something comes up and you're just like, I can't do it. I just can't. Like, I remember that was like the phrase in college, like, I can't even, like,
I forgot about that.
yeah. And it's, words are everything. Words play such a big role. And so one night I was really, really suffering, going through some particular things in my life. And I was really upset, and I was sitting with my partner and I was sobbing, I was crying. He looks at me and he was trying to help me and support me, but at the moment, like, realized I needed a little bit of tough love. And he looked at me and he said, "Get up." And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Get up." And I'm like, "No." Like, I wanted to just like stay marinating, sunk into that couch. I couldn't, quote unquote, I couldn't do it. So I thought. He sat there with me, Rob, for an hour, waiting for me to stand on my feet. Still crying. Stand up. And he goes, "Good." He goes, "Put your hands on your hips." And I'm like, "Why?" Like, just super resistant to everything that he wanted me to do in the moment. He was like, "Put your hands on your hips." So he made me stand up and he made me stand in a power pose. And he made me look at him and say, "Yes, I can. I can do it. I am strong and I am powerful." And that that was really hard for me to do, was to overcome all of those emotions that were completely overwhelming my body. And those emotions not only overwhelm you mentally, but physically, right? And I stood up and I reframed my beliefs. I reframed them to believe that I actually could. And that was the day that my life completely changed. That was the day that I started forgiving. That was the day that I started acting on things that I wanted to do that I felt like I just couldn't do. And it was the day that I started adding mindfulness into my life. And I will forever be grateful for him because of what he offered me and how he supported me. Um, because that led me down a path of adding in meditation, which helped me with overcoming a lot of those feelings of stress, anxiety, And that allowed me to recognize what all of those feelings were doing to me. And it was because of those stories that I was holding on to, and because of my inability to downregulate my stress, that I was on medication. And I got so frustrated one day, and I'm going to preface this with I don't recommend you doing it this way if you are on anxiety medications. But I got so mad one day that I spilled them all down the toilet. Like, I am done. I am so done. I don't want these in my life anymore. I want to do this myself. And I did. From that day forward, I never took another pill. Um, Never took another anti-anxiety, SSRI, whatever it is, antidepressant. I was on a couple of them. And that was the day that I committed to myself, to supporting me. And, that led me down a path of starting my own business, helping other people learn to overcome their own fears, their own anxieties, and help them realize that all of the things that they're feeling, all of the things that they've experienced in their life, they're all contributing to their physical state of being. Their pains, their back pain, their knee pain, their ankle pain. People come in and they question me. They're like, "Why are you asking me about my childhood?" I'm like, because, like, one, all of your scars matter. And two, if I don't ask you about your childhood, how am I going to figure out what emotions are contributing to your experience of pain, of your experience of immobility? They're all going to matter and play a role here. And, that's just the external, right? The internal, we're talking about our organs, making sure our organs are functioning properly. And if you're holding on to these beliefs and these emotions and these feelings, it's going to disrupt the internal state of your organs. And so that was really, I know that was kind of a long-winded answer for you there, but that was what led me down the path of holistic health and healing and mindfulness, and really figuring out how to show up for me and how to support me. And I never gave up. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I carry through my life now, is that I don't give up no matter what, no matter how hard it is. And that's the message that I try to portray to the people around me. It's like, you've got this, you can do it. You just have to believe that you can. Whether that is healing from pain, whether that's healing from chronic disease, whether that's reforming or restoring the things that you believe in about yourself, or whether that's reframing the way that somebody treated you to find the ways that that experience served you. You can do it, and it might not be easy, but I promise that it will be the most rewarding thing that you do for yourself, because when you find yourself and when you learn to control this being and this body and this temple that we're living in, you, you feel more powerful than you will ever feel in your life.
Incredible story. Wow. It's definitely you can see why you love what you do. That's for damn sure. I can see where the passion comes from. I can see where the love for your art of helping people comes from. And it's very apparent in your energy from, we never met in person, but from our conversations and seeing you on social media, you can feel the passion. And I think that's what really stood out to me when I first connected with you, is you could feel that tangible energy. And I think that a big piece for everyone listening, like you said, is that our mind and our body, they're not two separate things. They are one connected vessel, that if you try to separate the two and try to pretend like they're not affecting each other, you're out of your freaking mind or out of your body, because of the same thing. So so
Absolutely.
so recognizing, like you said, that if you're holding resentment, it could be something as simple as you didn't stand up for yourself when you were younger. So now your jaw, uh, you clench. You want to say something, but and now your jaw is tight. Now, because your jaw is tight, now maybe your breathing is off. Maybe now, because your jaw is tight, your head posture is forward. Now, because your head posture is forward, you're putting a lot of weight on your spine. And it can just be this one little trigger, this one trauma, this one experience that has now become a chronic habit, which is now manifesting in a chronic illness or a chronic symptom or a chronic disease. And when you say, asking people about their childhood, there's been times too where I ask people questions and they're like, what the fuck? Like, what? Why? What? No,
Yeah.
like, I'm not answering that. It's like, well, you're asking me for some advice here. I need to ask these questions because they all matter. And one thing that you said that really stood out to me is the fact that you said with the scarring is the body keeps score.
Yes.
We can pretend like, oh, that experience we had, last week or yesterday or last month or last year or a decade ago, yeah, it doesn't bother me anymore. But if you're still thinking about it, it's still in there. Like, if that pops in your head every once in a while, it's still in there. And if you still feel like, oh yeah, like, yeah, that time I injured my thumb, that's still holding in
Yeah.
your physical body. So I think it's just very interesting to recognize the fact that it's very easy to downplay. And I think we've created a society of downplaying our challenges, which survival instincts, that's not necessarily a bad thing. If we're out there hunting to survive and someone has a broken toe, we don't want them complaining about their broken toe. We want to be focused on getting our food for the day. But we don't live in that world anymore for the most part. And most of us are living in this chronic stress. And going back to that, we're stuck in the sympathetic nervous system where, again, we're not hunting, we're not trying to get something, we're not running from a lion or a tiger or a bear. Now that stress is our boss. Now that stress is that unresolved childhood trauma. Now that stress is, X, Y, and Z. We can go down the whole rabbit hole. But I just love to hear your thoughts as it relates to the mental component of that. How do we become aware of these things? Because a lot of people is like, oh, I feel this type of way and I don't know why. So what do you say for people kind of getting to the root of finding a lot of these chronic stressors?
Oh, I think there's so much that goes into that. First off, I think you brought up a really good point. And what people don't realize is, like, you think about getting chased by a lion or a bear and you think, oh wow, like that's actually really stressful. Like you can feel almost like how your body would respond and react. And what they don't realize is that, like, when you're sitting at your laptop or your desk during the day and you're stressed out from work, or you're stressed out looking at your email, or you're stressed out after a phone call you just had with somebody in your life, your body is literally responding in the exact same way as if it's getting chased by that lion or
Right.
that bear. And I think that's always a really, like, mind-blowing thing where people are like, whoa, like, I didn't know that. And so when you think about it and you think about how often we're doing that in our daily life, right? It's like, wow, you're getting chased by a lion or a bear almost every single day. Like, usually maybe 50% of the day if you're not being aware of what you're doing for yourself. And so, being mindful of your state is huge. And that, like anything else, takes practice, it takes time, it takes patience. It has taken me an awful long time. Granted, I'm 27, but it has taken me an awful long time to get to the point where I am as mindful of what's happening from head to toe that I am today. And, I always recommend, I think a really, really good place to start is two places actually: meditation being one, and a journal being two. Meditation, I think it very much overwhelms people when they hear meditation, or I've never done that, I can't do that. One, yes, you can. And two, it's baby steps. Like, a baby doesn't just stand up and start walking right away. A baby learns to breathe, it learns to roll, it learns to crawl, it learns to half kneel, it learns to stand. It has to do all these little baby steps, and it takes time to learn each one of those baby steps. And so when it comes to meditation, I personally purchase and pay for the Headspace app, and I offer my clients, I'm like, use my Headspace app. I want you, if I can give you one thing in your life, I want it to be mindfulness. Because when you have that, you have the tools and to the power to gain more tools, I'll say, and more power to control your state. And state is everything.
Right.
And so, if you can give yourself, start with 5 minutes a day. And I want to clarify that, meditation is not, it's not shutting off your brain. I think people think meditation, think like that, the switch on the wall, like on off switch. That's not what meditation is by far. And if that's what meditation like has become for you, like we might have some things to talk about here. Because meditation is ultimately just being aware of what is happening internally, externally, the thoughts that are going through your brain, the things that are coming up for you. When I sit and I meditate in the mornings, I'm just being aware what thoughts, what memories, what things are coming to mind. I'll try to jot them down if I can afterwards, because those are coming up for a reason. And those are things that might need some attention in your life. And so, starting there is a really good place to gain some mindfulness about your thoughts and about your physical body. Meditating doesn't have to just be sitting there listening to a guided meditation. It can be sitting there counting your breaths. It can be in making sure that you're belly breathing. And I like to say, focus on that point right below your belly button. Your sacral chakra there, and count the number of breaths. In is 1, out is 2, in is 3, out is 4, and just really focusing on counting those breaths, because counting is a meditative state as well. And you can do things like body scans, breathing in, imagining you're breathing in bright white light into your body, filling everything from your toes to your heel to your ankle to your knee to your hip, and so on and so forth, building all the way up until you're so full with this white light that it's just radiating out around you. So, in regards to becoming aware of your current state of being, I think starting with integrating meditation, and if you can do so in a way that it creates a habit or a routine, do it at the same time every day. Wake up, meditate, right? Get ready for bed, meditate, sleep, right? And when you can create that habit or routine, it leads you to be more likely to succeed. So that would be number 1. Number 2, I said the journal. And again, I think people immediately have such hesitations to journaling. And so the number 1 recommendation I always make is go to the store. If you can't go to the store right now, go on Amazon. Search for the right journal. I think that is so important. That journal must call you, whether it's the color, the texture, the saying, the buckle on the journal, whatever it is, that journal must call to you, and it must be something that you enjoy spending time with. Just like a friend, right? You wouldn't want your best friend to be someone that you don't enjoy spending time with. It just wouldn't end up that way. If it is, there might be an issue going on there that you might want to address. But when that journal calls to you and it makes you feel good, and it brings you the sense of like serotonin and dopamine and those feel good hormones, it helps you make that connection and that relationship with it. And journaling doesn't always have to be dear diary today dot dot dot. Like, that's not what journaling has to be. Like, for me, sometimes it's writing a poem. Sometimes it's writing a letter to somebody that really pissed me off. Sometimes it's writing a forgiveness letter to myself. Sometimes it is, writing lyrics. Sometimes that's drawing. It's whatever my body needs to bring to the surface. And you talked a little bit about like, scars and the past experiences. Like, if you're noticing that there's something coming up in your life that you're continuing to talk negatively about, that comes with that mindfulness, right? As you're having conversations, kind of sitting back and being like, ooh, I don't really like the way I talked about that, or ooh, I don't like the way that came out of my mouth. If there are these things happening in your life that are making you not feel good, that are stressing you out, that are creating ripple effects in the way that you're showing up or that you're talking to people, these are things that you want to address in your journal. And that's going to help bring light to it. And, if you can't get anything else out onto that paper other than angry, mean, negative energy words and experiences, my biggest recommendation is do not leave that journal until you can take what you've written And at the end, create some sort of positive reinforcement for yourself about that experience, about that note, whatever it is. Something that's going to bring light and bring positivity to that is going to help you end on a positive note, so that you continue to feel like you have this beneficial relationship with that journal. So I think those are two ways that you can really kind of focus in and optimize that mindfulness in your life, so that you can become more aware of your body, your physical body, your mental body. You brought something up, The Body Keeps the Score, one of my all-time favorite books. If you guys haven't read it, please, please, please read this book. It's life-changing. I'm sure that you would agree here, but um, very, very life changing. And it gives you some more insight as to, it talks a lot about PTSD and a lot about experiences. And PTSD doesn't just need to happen from work. PTSD can happen in your home. It can happen with a toxic relationship. And that PTSD makes ripple effects because it impacts your brain. It changes the way your brain works. It changes the way your body works. It changes the way your biochemistry is functioning for you on a daily basis. And then I love that at the end of it, it gives you different ways to actually work through and support yourself after some of these experiences. So I'd say that's a great place to start if you're looking to gain more mindfulness about your body and about what's happening internally and how you can start to shift things. Movement's always a great tool to utilize to help kind of just sit into your own self. But the Body Keeps the Score, journaling and meditation, I would say, are my top kind of go tos when it comes to starting out on your journey, with learning and knowing yourself and connecting with yourself on a more on higher level.
Definitely. And I really find that mindfulness, when as you were saying that, I was kind of envisioning mindfulness is the first door that we open. And now we're able to access all these other doors. So once we're able to step into the state of mindfulness, you look at the world like, whoa, it's a whole different perspective. Like sometimes I'll go to the same place, and even on my drive home from my friend's house last night, same drive I do every single time I go there, which is usually like once a week. And I really tuned into the amount of trees that were in this parking lot that I stopped at the same red light I usually hit every time. And I was like, wow, my intention is on looking for trees, and I'm seeing a lot of these trees. And I've driven this road for probably 16 years, and now I'm really starting to see these. So it really is phenomenal to me when we shift our awareness and shift our attention. It's like the whole idea of like, oh, if you look for a yellow car, it's like, oh, I never see yellow cars. Then all of a sudden your intention is to look for yellow cars. It's like, wait, I just saw 10 yellow cars in my 20-minute ride. So really where our attention goes, the energy flows. So a big thing to me that I really enjoy with the mindfulness is just practicing that in anything I'm doing. Like you said, it doesn't have to be sitting still in meditation. And, sometimes meditation is simply just not being on your phone. That's a meditation for a lot of people nowadays, just disconnecting from technology, just being with yourself.
Mhm.
But in terms of mindfulness, when I'm playing basketball, getting into that flow state, I'm not listening to music, I'm not talking to people, I'm just dribbling the ball, shooting. When I'm exercising, I'm moving the weights, moving my body. I'm in that. I'm not focused on the other things I'm doing. I'm just being present with the activity what I'm doing. And I think that's the most basic level of mindfulness. We can find mindfulness with anything we're doing. And I think, like you said, it can be very overwhelming to people when they think, oh, I have to practice mindfulness, or I have to practice meditation. I have to go sit still and clear my mind for 20 minutes and sit in this, this crazy pose like Rafiki does in The Lion King. And just like, it doesn't have to be that. It can be a lot more simple. And walking is a meditation. If you're just walking without music, without a cell phone, without anything, and you're just looking around and walking, that is a mindful action. And, it kills me to see people that are hunched over on their phones while they're walking. It's like, well, now you're not walking. Now you're just moving while you're reading something on your phone. And now you're getting that bad posture and you're not able to breathe fully. And again, we can go down the whole rabbit hole of why that's not
Oh yeah.
good for us. But yeah, I think that at the end of the day, mindfulness is just an essential piece of really living a fulfilled life, because if you're not present in the moment, you're never going to be truly happy, because you need to be able to enjoy the process. And even like you said with the bodybuilding, you can be so attached to an outcome, say I'll be happy when, and then that when happens, but you're still not in the present moment, and then that moment passes and now it's like, well, now I'm not happy. What happened?
Mhm.
So the present moment to me is just really what it all comes down to. And I think that's something I really learned when I lived in Asia for a while, and just being in Sri Lanka, you know, no other Americans there. No one else really spoke English. They don't have cell phones. They don't have TVs. They just exist as human beings in the present moment at all times. And it was crazy because it was such a culture shock coming from the Western world to then live there for 2 months, and especially where most of the people didn't speak English, and just learning how to just be. There's no cell phone reception, there's no Wi-Fi, there's nothing. And you're just in the moment. And I remember coming back and it was like landing in JFK Airport. Everyone is, probably one of the most crazy airports that I can think of.
Going 1,000 miles an hour.
Everyone is all over the place. Everyone's complaining. There's a lot of chaos. There's a lot of stress. And that was like a holy shit type of moment in my life that, it's not about, like you said earlier, the Western culture, Western medicine is really good at saving lives. And Eastern culture is really good at preventative medicine. But if we can find the two and find the middle ground, it's
Yes.
not about I hate the argument, oh, what's better, Western or Eastern? No, neither. They're both great for what they're intended for. Western medicine isn't meant to promote wellness. It's meant to stop you from dying and
Mhm.
stop you from being in pain. So if we can find the middle ground and use the two, that's a whole different ball game.
I think you've made such a good point there too, because even with my story, with I talk about being on anxiety medications as something that wasn't beneficial. In reality, it was beneficial for me at the time. But I think that as practitioners here, in Western medicine, it should be their job to say, look, this is a temporary support for you. We need to get you to a point where you're able to support yourself, right? Teach you the tools, figure out how you can support yourself without this. But we're not doing that. We're giving these medications to people, and not coaching them, not guiding them as to, it's like, here, this is for you. This isn't temporary. This is for the rest of your life, because we're not giving them direction as to how to support themselves. And again, I think that's where it really becomes so important to find that branch between Eastern and Western. I wish my therapist had said, hey, look, this anti-anxiety medication is for you until you figure out how to control your anxiety on your own. But that wasn't how I felt when she handed them to me. I was like, oh, perfect. This is a fix. I'm never going to have anxiety again. Right. And that's not how it works at all.
Right. And I think a big thing with that too is it just breeds this instant gratification that does not exist in nature. And that's something that, with all the cell phones, the computers, TVs, video games, porn, all these things that are instant gratification, that's not how our brain and body were created. We weren't created for instant gratification.
Yeah.
And so it's a real big challenge for us to have a lot of patience in a lot of things now, especially a lot of the younger generations who, I mean, I'm 27 as well. I feel like we grew up in a stage that was on the transition. And I feel
Mm,
very blessed to be born when I was that, I grew up, I didn't have a computer, or if when I did have a computer, it was dial up. So we couldn't use the phone. So I could only be on for like 15, 20 minutes at a time because we didn't know if a
very well,
phone call
dial
was
up.
coming.
You
Yep.
can't ever forget that sound.
All right. Yep. And then it was like we didn't have cell phones. I didn't get a cell phone until I was in high school. I didn't get a smartphone until I was a senior in high school. So to me, I feel like truly blessed that I grew up in the exact time that I think was perfect, that it was on that transition. I used to ride my bike to my friend's house to knock on their door to see if they were home to play. So to me, it's just learning to balance it all and recognizing that just because technology, instant gratification is common now doesn't mean that's normal. Just because we have a pill for everything that can stop a symptom and that's common now doesn't mean that's normal. There are so many common factors in our society that we've now accepted as a culture as normal. But once we've done that, we've already lost, because we can't pretend like everything happens just like that. You can't just say, oh, take a pill, your life is fixed. No, things take work, and that's okay. There's nothing bad with having things take time. Sometimes the greatest things take the longest time to build. You know, the whole saying, Rome wasn't built in a day. And that's for a good reason. If they built in a day, it'd probably be the shittiest empire ever. So I always just try to, remind people that it's okay that things take time. It's okay if you don't heal overnight. It's okay if you don't feel better when you did one meditation. That doesn't mean it doesn't work. It just means you just got to keep going with it. And that's the beautiful part of life is the challenges and the fact that things don't happen instantly, because otherwise life would be pretty damn boring if everything
So
was
boring.
instant.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Again, same here. Like, I grew up playing outside every single day. Like, mom would open the front door and yell for us to come in for dinner. Like, that was my life. And kids don't get that anymore. We're not, especially too with the state of the world right now and all the things happening with COVID and the changes to the definitions of herd immunity. And it hurts me because we're teaching people to stop being responsible for their own
Right.
being. We're teaching people that there are tools that can do it for them, and that's not how we were created. That's not why we were created. That's not the way that we need to function in society to live an optimal life, to live a healthy life, to live a fulfilled life, right? Because the moment that you give up your own responsibility to control this vessel is the moment where everything's going to go to shit.
Right. And we've seen that.
And yeah, I know you've experienced it. I've experienced it. It's what happens, and
Right.
you have to learn to gain control, and you do have control, and that's one of the biggest things that I teach my clients when I'm driving them through my programs is you have control. You can take control. You forever, no matter what is currently going on in your life, you can't control what's happening to you, but you can control how you respond to it. And
100%.
your response is going to dictate a whole lot more than if you then focusing on what's actually happening to you. And one of my favorite ways of looking at the body, and this is one of my own personal quotes, is your pain, your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, you know all of those things are messages from your body to your body to show up with more love, more care, and more attention.
Right.
It's literally your body asking you for help,
Right.
right? And if you listen to those and you're mindful of those messages, you have the ability to understand what's happening. You might not know the exact tools to use, which is why you can go and find a coach like myself or like yourself to help guide them through how they can show up and how they need to support themselves better. But if you stop listening to them, those alarms are going to sound 5 years later, 10 years later, 15, 20 years later. And then you're going to take a step back and you're going to look at yourself in the mirror and be like, what the fuck happened? And we don't want you to be there. We don't want you to have to suffer. Like, that's not why we're here. That's not why we're put on this earth. Like, you and I know I can speak on your behalf with this too. Like, we're here to support others, and we're here to show them that they do have the power over their own bodies, and they can control their own experience. But unfortunately, that means having to restory a lot of things that society has taught us, that we have to be connected to our phones. Man, I refuse to get an iWatch, an
Me
Apple
too.
Watch. I refuse. I'm like,
Me too.
there's no way in hell that you can convince me to connect myself to my phone for even longer during the day than I
Or
already
the
am.
AirPods. I can't stand the
Nope.
AirPods either.
No,
We call those brain grenades in our little community here. But
it's true.
right. But to your point, it's just a reminder that in this COVID era, we've conditioned people to say, someone else will take care of it. You just wait this thing out. Someone else will come in and save it. You'll take care of it. Just don't get sick. It's not about let's be healthy. It's like, don't get sick. What are we doing? We're doing hand sanitizer, killing all the good bacteria. Yeah, it's killing the bad ones too, but we're also killing all the good ones, which we have many more of those. Oh, what else do we do? Okay, we do all these things that are, yes, they are preventing illness, but they're also preventing wellness.
Yeah.
It's a double-edged sword, and
Yeah.
it comes back to Western medicine. Yeah, if someone has a bacterial infection, yeah, give them some hand sanitizer. If they touch some shit that is going to destroy their body, yeah, use it then, but don't just use it every time you go
No.
in and out of a store or
Yeah.
every time, it just drives me
You
crazy.
you
But
see the kids now going to school with them
oh,
attached to their backpacks, and that's the most important time to build up your immunity is
right.
as a child.
And here's the other thing too is that to me, the fact that we're conditioning ourselves to believe that other human beings just by breathing near us are, infected sacks of flesh is terrifying. To me, it's like if anything that this past year has shown me is just how essential community is and how much I love being around people and how important it is to surround ourselves with people that are actually focused on improving ourselves and promoting wellness rather than promoting not getting sick. Because the way that I look at it, and my mentor Paul Chek always says, the answer to every prayer is yes. So if you say, I don't want to get sick, I don't want to get sick, I don't want to get sick, your brain eventually will get rid of that don't. And then it'll just say, I want to be sick, I want to be sick. And now you're conditioning your body to actually go, you're right, to actually become sick. And it's like, again, what I said earlier, where focus goes, energy flows. If you're just focusing on sickness, you're going to manifest sickness. But if you're
Mhm.
focusing on wellness and all you're focusing on is wellness, you're going to manifest wellness. So at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to, like you said, we need to take responsibility for ourselves. It's so easy to say, "Oh, this other person will save me. This I don't have to do anything because, the government will save me. This whoever will save me." It's like, well, yeah, I mean, they can save you from not dying, but like, wouldn't you rather want to thrive than just survive? And, maybe I feel like sometimes I'm taking crazy pills when I say, I want to thrive and not just survive. But it's like, we have to make that conscious shift that one, we're responsible for ourselves. Yes, there are times, like you said, it is absolutely important and essential to ask for help, but we need to take responsibility. No one's here to save us. They can guide us in the right direction. We can seek out help, which we should when we need it. But at the end of the day, even the person that's helping us, it's not their job to fix us. It's their job to open our eyes maybe to some tools that we can then take responsibility for using to then promote the wellness within ourselves.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree with you anymore. Um, and that's where my mission comes in is to try to support you and hold your hand while you learn to take responsibility. And I personally have two really, really near and dear goals for in my life that are kind of like that ultimate. And hopefully no, I will hit them.
You
I know
will.
I
You
will.
will.
One of them is to create a nonprofit. And what I really desire is, you've heard of Doctors Beyond Borders, right? Where doctors go abroad and they take care of people abroad, and amazing, so needed. What I really want to do is create a nonprofit for holistic health providers to go abroad and to educate, not treat. We might need that too, right? Right? Thinking acupuncturists, chiropractors, physical therapists, but people that have this outside the box mindset and that understand that it is literally about educating responsibility, right? Because you might not be able to control how clean your water is, but if you can control what you believe about the water that you're drinking, it's a big difference, right? If you can control, how you're showing up for yourself, even in a community that might not be the cleanest, you're going to be healthier. And so, one of my big goals is to create a nonprofit where I can have practitioners of all sorts traveling to areas of lower income and areas that are less fortunate, and to just leave them with love, with energy, and with an influence to completely change up the way that they're thinking, living, and feeling on a daily basis. And another one of my big goals is to take all of these things that we're talking about here right now and to completely restructure the educational community and get into schools. I want to restructure what health class is. I want health class to be, how do we meditate? What is meditating? Let's work on breathing techniques, not, oh, let's go into the gym and kick a kickball around. Like, great, it's awesome to move, but
Kickball is fun though. Yeah, it's like
kickball's great. And that's a good thing to do. You know what I mean? We need to mix that movement in.
right.
Absolutely. But like, if we can get into the minds of children when they're younger and help them understand this, because no matter what, they're going to continue developing in a society that continues to push this opposite message. It's inevitable. So where does the push and pull come in, right? You have to give them tools to help understand how to support themselves, well, and educate them what to do to not just fall into that slippery slope of what society is pushing on them. And that goes for everything from understanding, like I said, your mind, your body, sexual preferences. I think it's so important to really harness and support these children when they're young with the tools that they're literally going to use for the rest of their lives. Like, there's not many things that I learned in third grade that I can sit here and tell you, like, oh yeah, like that really changed my life, like I know what I'm doing, like,
Right.
maybe like the Spanish, like 1 to 10, like
Right.
counting, right? But it's like, if that is one of my ultimate goals, because if I can do those two things, and I will,
You will.
then I will be able to create this influence on such a massive scale where I'm not just giving somebody a movement, or an exercise routine. I'm literally giving them tools to completely change not only their lives, but the lineage and everybody that's going to come after them. Because once
100%.
you have those tools, you can't unlearn them. You teach and you want to share them with the rest of the world because of how great it's made you feel.
Right. Absolutely. And, up until COVID happened, I was leading an after school program for kids ages 5 to 11. And so a lot of what I was doing was yoga, meditation, breath work with the kids, gardening, taking them out to climb trees. And I had to do evaluations like halfway through the year. So my boss went and like interviewed some of the kids like about me. And one of the kids, his review was, he's the teacher that lets you do things other teachers wouldn't, but in a safe way. And I was like, if that's the reputation I get, I'll take that. He was like, yeah, he lets us climb trees. Other teachers don't let us climb trees, but he teaches us how to do it safely and lets us know that like we might get hurt, but if we're okay with that, then we can do that. And I was like, wow, that is awesome. So I'm right there with you that I think it really stems with the young minds at the end of the day. And especially I am honestly scared of what's going to happen in the long term to what's happening to the kids that are growing up right now who are not equipped with the tools to combat social isolation, with a lot of the things that are happening to their microbiome with all the sanitation and everything else that's going on. But we could go on and on for probably 3 more hours, but there probably will be an episode 2. So for now, where can people find you, connect with you, and any final messages you'd love to share with the audience?
Yeah. So you can find me on all platforms, Mind Body with Leah, Leah. And you can find me on my website. You can go to mindbodywithleah.com. It will also show up as leahdrew.com. So that's Leahdrew. And yeah, I would love to connect with anyone and everyone. I love to just spread some love and some good energy. So if you shoot me a follow, send me a message, let me know that you heard our conversation, and I would love to know what resonated with you most. And yeah, I would love to connect and just build some friendships. But thank you so much, Rob. I appreciate you having me on. As always, the conversation, it was amazing, and I very much appreciate you for hosting me and for your mission and for just continuing to share your love and light with the world.
Thank you very much, Leah. I appreciate you being here and much of the same. Appreciate the love and the light you're shining and appreciate the energy you bring. So thank you for being you. I'm excited to see these nonprofits and hope to be one of those practitioners and would love to also help out with that school in the future. So let's
Let's
keep
do
it
it.
rocking and rolling. And everybody listening, thank you for listening. Have the best day ever.
Bye,
Peace.
guys.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Whole Health with Rob Carney podcast with our guest, Leah Drew. So I'd love for you to connect with Leah. You can go to her website at www.mindbodywithleah.com. And you can also check her out on Instagram at mindbodywithleah, all one word, no spaces. Connect with her. She's up to a lot of really cool stuff right now. Would love for you to check her out, get to know her, because as you've seen from this episode, we have a very similar mission, very similar values, and we'd love for you to support her and everyone else in our community as best we can. And another way to support our community and support this podcast is by checking out our Superfood sponsors. So you can check out the website, wholehealthconnects.com, and go to Superfood Nutrition. So wholehealthconnects.com/superfood-nutrition to find some of the favorites of myself, clients, other practitioners, podcast listeners, human beings of planet Earth, to see a lot of the superfoods that I use on a daily basis, and a lot of, as I said, many other people use as well. So one I want to really hone in on today is the Purium Daily Core 4. So this is kind of what I'd say a gentle way to take a first step in your transformation, beginning nourishing and detoxifying the body. So this pack contains Purium's 4 main products to bring your body the daily foundational nutrition it needs. So we suggest taking 1 serving of each product every day. And, there's no pressure to modify your existing diet. Just add it into what you're already doing. And if you really want to take it to the next level, that's when I'd say checking out the Ultimate Lifestyle Transformation, which is a 30-day transformational pack, just like it says, Ultimate Lifestyle Transformation. But to get your Daily Core 4 or Ultimate Lifestyle Transformation, you can go to ishoppurium.com and use the discount code NUTRITION to save 25% on your first order. So check it out, Daily Core 4. I'd say those are the 4 main products I recommend everybody start with in Purium. Get your body, as I said, that first gentle step into getting some great superfoods into your body and getting a feel of what a transformation feels like. So again, thank you so much for listening to this podcast. I'd really appreciate it if you could share this. If you found this conversation to be helpful, informative, or any way beneficial to your life, please share with a friend, family member, or anyone on social media that people can tune in and learn from Leah and the message that she shares. And if you haven't already subscribed to this podcast, I'd really appreciate that as well. If you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to the channel. It really helps with the growth of our channel and allows us to have more great conversations. So thank you so much for listening. Have the best day ever, and we'll see you on the next episode.